This is a new interview for me. But I think it's a good one. We're here with Ken Thompson. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm good.
All right. Now tell the people watching, listening, what you're running for. What political public office you're running for?
I'm running for Brooklyn District Attorney, which is the top prosecutor in the whole borough of Brooklyn. The Brooklyn DA is one of the most powerful positions we have in the city because the DA decides whether a person should be investigated and prosecuted. And the DA has the obligation to keep us safe on the streets. But if somebody is falsely arrested, that DA can prevent an injustice from happening. And so I'm running for Brooklyn DA because the DA's office in Brooklyn is in crisis. Innocent men have been railroaded and convicted of murders that they did not commit. We have got to stop that. And we have to deal with the excessive abuse of stop and frisk.
So normally when you hear district attorney, in my experience, it's not a person that you hear positive things about.
That's true.
Now, that's because of the role of deciding who gets investigated and how and when and why people get prosecuted.
Yes, but I think that what I represent is someone who comes out of New York City public housing projects. I was raised by a single mother who raised 3 kids alone in the projects and who became a cop in 1973. My mother became one of the first women to go on patrol in the history of the city, black or white, and raised 3 kids by herself and served as a cop for 21 years. And because of her sacrifice, I was able to go through the public school system here in the city. I went to John Jay College where I graduated with honors, went to NYU Law School, worked for President Clinton down in the Treasury Department. Then I came back to Brooklyn and I served as a federal prosecutor in the United States Attorney's Office. And I went after violent gangs. I went after bank robbers, murderers. But then I was given the Abner Louima case. And many of your listeners and viewers may recall that Abner Louima was a young brother who was beaten on the streets of Brooklyn by the police, taken to the 70th precinct, taken to the bathroom with his pants down and handcuffed behind his back, and sodomized with a broken broomstick by police officer Justin Volpe. I did that case. I did the investigation, I did the opening statement at trial, and I convicted police officer Volpe, and that's why he's in prison, federal prison, for 30 years.
To you.
And so you look at somebody like me, I come out of our community. I was raised by a single mother, and I understand that when you see a young brother, a young man walking down the street, that doesn't mean that he's up to no good. And I think we need to have somebody who has a certain perspective and understands that we all want to be safe. We all want guns off the street. But you can't violate the civil rights of tens of thousands of innocent young black and Latino men who are walking down the street minding their own business.
So are you for or against stop and frisk?
I'm for stop and frisk if it's done the right way.
Now explain, because we've been having this dialogue, because I am also on the side of, I think I'm for stop and frisk if there's respect given. And I also see young men out here hanging out in front of storefronts for hours at a time, you know, walking in groups of 10 and 20 down the street, hollering, yelling at cars as they drive by. And people go, well, they shouldn't be stopped or they shouldn't be frisked because they're not really up to doing anything bad. But I go, well, but why are they acting like that? And why are they, now they may have not done anything, but you're acting crazy. You're sitting on the stoop smoking weed all day.
Well, let me just say this. The highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, said the only way a cop can stop someone on the street is if they have reasonable suspicion that that person committed a crime or is about to commit a crime. That's a high standard, bro. And in order to frisk them, the Supreme Court said that the officer must believe that the person who they stopped is armed and dangerous and poses a threat. It can't be based on a hunch. They got to see a bulge in the pants. They got to see a handle of a gun. Then they can pat them down to protect themselves. That's not what's happening. There was a report. 4 years of stop and frisk were analyzed. And in that 4-year period, an 8-block stretch in Brownsville, there were over 50,000 stops and only 25 guns recovered. Now, how is that possible if that's based on reasonable suspicion? So you just can't stop young black and Latino men and toss them on the street and then bring them into the criminal justice system.
The other part of that, too, is don't you believe that, or do you believe that the neighborhoods are being profiled because they're low income, because they're predominantly black and Latino? Police are profiling these neighborhoods because of the types of crimes that are committed in these neighborhoods. Is that why they're over policing these neighborhoods?
Ebro, I come out of the projects of New York City, so I understand exactly how it is to live in public housing. But I disagree with the mayor. I disagree with Mayor Bloomberg, who said that we should consider fingerprinting people who live in the projects and their guests. See, I don't think that you can look at a whole community and think everyone there, is a criminal. I think that in all communities you have law-abiding folks and you have some bad folks. So I look at those communities differently, and as Brooklyn DA, I'm going to treat them differently. If you look at stop and frisk, Brooklyn leads the city in stop and frisk. The 75th precinct in East New York and the 73rd precinct in Brownsville lead the city.
But my question to you is, are those police profiling the neighborhood? Is that why they're acting that way in those neighborhoods? Because they're not, like, to your point, they're not coming up with guns.
I'm going to give you a couple of examples.
They're stopping a lot of people.
Let me say,
not coming up with guns.
There was a federal judge who came out with a decision about 2 weeks ago where she found stop and frisk to be unconstitutional. And that federal judge said that the stop and frisk going on in the city was based in part on racial profiling. That was a federal judge right here in Manhattan. And we know about the secret recording that one of the cops made of his supervisor up in the Bronx at roll call. What did that supervisor said? He said, go out and stop young black males. If that's not racial profiling, what is?
No, it's 100% racial profiling.
And so we need a DA who's going to be sensitive and say, wait, hold up. There's going to be one standard of justice. There's going to be equal justice for everybody. No matter where you live, whether you live in the projects or whether you live in a multi-million-dollar brownstone, whether you have a GED, or whether you have a PhD, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter where you come from. We're all going to have one standard of justice. And that's going to apply not only just to the community, but to the police. We can't have one standard for the community and not for the police. I want the community to uphold the law. So but I'm going to want the police to uphold the law too.
Now, that sounds great. It's good talk. What you're saying is good talk. But you're asking someone that makes, how much does an average police officer make income?
A rookie, I think, is like $30,000 or $40,000.
$30,000 or $40,000. Who I think most of the time isn't from the neighborhoods they're policing. A lot of times they're brought in from the suburbs, different cities. There's a cultural disconnect. You're asking someone who makes $40,000 a year, who works in a certain neighborhood, to actually give a fuck and actually learn about the people who live in the area they police. That's something that you believe as DA you can enforce?
Well, let me say this. What I can do as DA is I can go into those communities. Like, I've gone into the barbershops and the beauty parlors in connection with my campaign for Brooklyn DA. And these brothers have told me horror stories. Grown men, barbershop owners, telling me, one guy told me he got off work, closed his shop, went to get food, and wanted to just get upstairs and watch the Knicks game. And he was stopped and frisked, and they took his food and they threw it on the ground for good measure. I had a 62-year-old black woman come up to me and said that she lives in Bed-Stuy and went to her bodega in the middle of the day. And when she came out, plainclothes cops stopped her right on the street and said she had just come out of a known drug spot. And they stopped and frisked her. They degraded her right on the streets of her own neighborhood.
It happens all the time. And I actually live in Bed-Stuy too, and I've been a victim. I don't want to say victim. I've been involved in the same circumstance where I get pulled over frequently just for trying to go home, maybe coming off of the subway or doing my regular routes. But the thing is, you can't fight every situation. How do you change, like what he's saying, the mentality of the police officers that are doing it? If they're not from these neighborhoods and they can't spot, isn't their job to identify a real criminal from somebody who just looks like they're wearing hip-hop clothes?
Well, I think that what has to happen with the police department in large measure is there needs to be a new mayor, because the police commissioner carries out the policies of the mayor who's in City Hall.
But sometimes it feels like Ray Kelly has more power than the mayor, and sometimes, like even with Bloomberg and Ray Kelly, it feels like Bloomberg is afraid of Ray Kelly.
Well, let me just say this. The new police commissioner will likely pick the new mayor will likely pick a new police commissioner.
And who are you standing next to for mayor?
I can't pick any of them as DA. I can tell you that I am going to work with whoever is the next mayor. But let me just say this. What I intend to do is be proactive when it comes to stop and frisk. Give you an example. What happens sometimes is a young man of color is walking down the street, stopped and frisked, and let's say the frisk was not based on reasonable suspicion. The stop wasn't based on reasonable suspicion. So they're arrested at times. They're brought into the system. It can take 2 days for them to wind their way through central booking to get out. No. What I intend to do is I intend to put a prosecutor in the 75th precinct and in the 73rd precinct. So when those stop and frisk cases come in, right then and there, we're going to determine whether they're based on reasonable suspicion.
Before they get sent to central booking.
No, right. And if they're not, they're being cut loose right then and there. I'm going to uphold the law. I'm not going to play
that's
games.
Two precincts.
No, but those are the two precincts leading the city.
Main ones.
The two,
really?
the 75th and the 73rd.
And when you say leading the city in stop and frisk incidents, cases, whatever, what do you call them? By what percentage?
Well, let me just say this. In the 75th precinct, I believe they had 33,000 stops and frisks alone in that one precinct. I mean, so I point to those two precincts.
And how many in a year? How many has the city had in a year?
Just
give me an example.
Let me say this. In 2011, there were 685,000 stop and frisk in the whole city. That's extraordinary. That's almost 1 million people stopped. The vast majority of them were young black and Latino men who listen to Hot 97.
That's right.
Who have done nothing wrong.
That's right.
Just walking about their business. I mean, they have rights. And so the point I'm making is we've got to be more aggressive and about getting these guns off the street, but that doesn't mean we violate the rights of the people in the community. Right. And so I am determined to do something about stop and frisk, to be a leader. I have a young daughter. She's only 9 years old. I have a young son who's 6. My son Kenny is 6 today, but he's going to be 16 tomorrow.
That's right.
And when he goes out to hang out with his friends or to go to the store, I shouldn't have to sit there worried about whether he's going to be stopped and frisked and brought in the criminal justice system.
So in the transition of this conversation, for those of y'all watching this, Ken Thompson is his name. You better get registered to vote, and you better activate when it's time to go activate and vote, which is on what day for people to go out and vote?
It's this Tuesday coming up, September 10th.
September 10th.
Is an important election. Everyone should come out. If you care about stop and frisk, if you care about innocent men being convicted for murders that they did not commit, you have to come out and vote.
So on September 10th, when we go out and vote, we'll be able to select if we like what you're talking about, we'll be able to select Ken Thompson for DA.
Yes. If you live in Brooklyn.
If you live in Brooklyn. But you got to live in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And then isn't that the primary for the mayoral part? And then that proceeds on a month later where you actually pick the mayor.
What happens is on September 10th, there's going to be an election for mayor, the Democratic primary. All of these guys and people running for mayor, when you go to the poll on Tuesday, you can vote for mayor. You can vote for Brooklyn DA. And whoever wins the Democratic primary on Tuesday, then you got to go run one more time for the general election in November.
Got it. Even the DA.
The DA.
Okay.
But once I win on Tuesday night, that's going to be the biggest election because more Democrats in Brooklyn than Republicans. And then I'll take office on January 1st. And then we will usher in a new day in Brooklyn.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit because I'm sure you have competition. There's some people you're up against, right?
No, I'm up against.
You're up against nobody.
Ebro, I'm going against the sitting DA. That's the only one. Just 2 names on the ballot: Ken Thompson and Charles J. Hines.
And how long's Charles J. Hines been in there?
He's been in there for over 23 years.
23 years.
23 years.
So I'm sure we need a change.
23 years.
But now I challenge you, Ken.
Yes.
Because I sit on the side of dealing with even our listeners, whom I know, are confronted with circumstances where they have to make choices on a daily, right? And part of my I guess confusion is we talk about stop and frisk and we talk about getting guns off the street. But I don't hear a lot of dialogue about why young black and Latino men who are the highest offenders in gun violence crimes in the city feel the need to carry a weapon when they walk outside their home. I don't feel like that dialogue takes place enough. I feel like we deal with the symptoms of our sickness, but we don't deal with our sickness. Who are you and what are you doing that makes you feel so unsafe that when you walk outside your home, you have to carry a pistol in your own neighborhood with your own neighbors? What's going on in that neighborhood? Or what, as parents, are we allowing to go on with our kids that our neighborhoods have becomes a place where we don't even trust our neighbors? To where we have to carry a pistol. I think that conversation is critical because if we deal with that conversation of why do young black and Latino men feel the need, like they're John Wayne or somebody, like they're really going to go out here and do something, that's going to fix something. Some of them do, but usually it's not to fix something.
I mean, it's adding to the problem.
It's adding to the problem.
But that's
so why and I know the answer. The answer is jobs. The answer is money. The answer is self-esteem. The answer is all of these things.
Poverty is a lot.
Poverty, all of that. But I don't think we're having that dialogue. We're not having that conversation.
But that's why we need someone like me as Brooklyn DA who can start that dialogue. You look at this beautiful 1-year-old baby who was killed in Brownsville. Antique Hennis was not even 2 years old. A 1-year-old baby in his stroller shot in his head Sunday night in Brownsville. The whole city should have shut down. Right. But we're becoming so immune to these shootings. I mean, what do we have to do?
Well, and even deeper than that, we've become immune to the neighborhoods that they happen in, to where we'd be like, oh, that's, and even the people who live there. Right. Matter of fact, this audience that watch Hot 97, I hear them laugh. The young men that work around the radio station, oh, yo, that's what they do. Niggas be busting their guns, yo. You know what I'm saying? Shit is crazy. And they just write it off like it's cool. Now, I know that's a defense mechanism for the real sadness that's inside. So we play it off and try to act like it's cool and laugh and do all that joking around. But I still put the onus on us as Black and Latino men to change the way we are perceived. We always go, yo, they stopping us. Yo, they doing this. Yo, they doing that to us. But how many years have we spent making ourselves look a certain way so socially we're seen a certain way? Because we spend a lot of time doing that too.
Ebro, all you got to do is drive down the streets of Brooklyn and see the young brothers walking down the streets. You know, I mean, some of them.
And look, I sag my pants. People try to point to sagging pants. It's not sagging pants. It's how you articulate yourself. It's how you act.
But they're not paying attention to that when they pull you over.
Well, no.
Listen, when I get pulled over, when I get profiled, it doesn't go much further than that, because when I open my mouth, I know how to speak.
Right. I mean, you're educated.
We talk about this all the time, Shawnee. How often do you get frustrated now?
I get frustrated often, but I am able to get out of the situation because of the way I talk to the officers.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just get frustrated with the actual stopping.
Right.
We all do.
I get past it.
We all do.
But you're assuming that everybody has the same sensibility, and all these
everyone
parents,
needs to.
They need it. But this is not
I won't sit up here and make excuses for people who don't want to put in the work to make sure that their children or themselves are capable and equipped to get out here and deal with the racism that we know we got to deal with. Because the end game, becomes us being competitive on a business level and being able to fix our neighborhoods financially, right? So the fact that we're being criminalized young or enabling police officers and whomever is in power to criminalize us young, frustrate us, then we act out because we frustrated, right? Then we end up locked up. It's a wrap. We not competing now. So now we just in jail.
Vicious cycle that the root is like way deep in the ground that we have to try to correct.
But we can't point to everybody else and be like, yo, you need to fix how you acting. I'm saying put the responsibility on yourself and make sure that point of you getting frustrated and acting out doesn't result in some other shit, because now we not even competitive.
Right. But I think out of all the elected offices we got all of these city council folks.
Talking to the mic.
City council folks, people in the state legislature, Congress members. The DA is the one position that directly affects our life. Any one of us can leave the studio today, get in our car and drive and be stopped.
That's right. I think my brake lights is out right now, and I need an inspection sticker.
Follow that man.
You got about 3 or 4 strikes against you, man. But I think
I'm doing bad out here.
As DA, what we can have is someone who looks at our community differently. What you said, Ebro, is so true. Is very complicated. But what I want to do is I want to be a role model for these young brothers and say, look, I come out of the projects. I was raised by a single mother.
Yeah, but you a corny nigga, man. You in a suit, man. You don't know what I'm going through.
Let me tell you, when I'm walking down the street, do you think they see my suit? People don't see my suit. The point I'm making is I come from our experiences. I want to keep us safe. Those kids running around the projects today, I know that they can run around the projects today but sit on the Supreme Court tomorrow. I believe that. That's in my heart.
Is there a way that you can influence the schools? Because
brother, I'm glad you mentioned that. Because
if it's coming from there, that's weird. If it's not being done at home, then the teachers have to have a part.
Let me
tell you. When they leave the school, there's some type of respect that they're holding before they go home instead of being in the streets acting crazy.
Well, let me tell you what they're doing in Cincinnati. In Cincinnati, they're developing and pushing a concept called community schools, where they're keeping schools open from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, and they're open on the weekends. And the school is becoming the center of the community. Those kids are learning languages, computer skills, playing basketball.
Putting in extra time.
And kids who dropped out, they're coming back for GED courses, and the older adults who need literacy courses, they need to learn how to read and write, they're coming back. The school is the center of the community. That's what we need to do in Brooklyn and throughout New York City. That's what I want to do. I want to work with the school system. I want to be a leader, not just a gatekeeper of the criminal justice system.
So now politically, you're talking about more resources. You're talking about more money going to these schools, right? Now let's get down to the nitty gritty. Why, as a tax-paying citizen, am I going to want my money going to an area that is government funded and people don't want to pull themselves up by the bootstraps?
Well, Ebro, growing up in New York City, the common denominator of my friends who went to jail was that they dropped out of school. That was a common denominator.
Yep.
And so we need to put money into schools because that is being smart on crime. We shouldn't have to wait for a criminal act to occur, because then you have a victim and you have a defendant.
You're challenging the well, for lack of a better term, you're challenging the hierarchy of business and the flow of tax revenue in the city. You're saying if you, mayor, whomever, is serious about stopping crime, you will invest in these schools and neighborhoods where there's potential high crime rates, because making sure kids graduate, making sure there's after school programs, making sure there's things for kids to learn beyond the standard education is the thing that's going to stop crime. Is that the challenge?
Yes, but Ebro, we have to go beyond that. Look what happened when I stood with our brother Blue Williams and we did the Guns for Greatness program. You know about it. You helped us.
Yes.
Blue came to me with this great idea, and I wrote the proposal to the NYPD, where we came together. Londell McMillan, Blue, myself, and others came together, and we decided to have a private sector gun buyback program where we raise money from the private sector, not from taxpayers.
Right.
And we came on Hot 97.
These businesses making money off young Black and Latino men. They donated money to operate this program.
And what we did is Hot 97 pushed it, promoted it, and we had that gun buyback program at my church in Brooklyn, Christian Cultural Center, known as CCC, on March 30th. And in 6 hours, 115 guns were turned in.
Yo, it's amazing. A cat'll turn in a burner for some Beyonce tickets real quick, my G.
Wait, how many guns?
115 guns in 6 hours, including an assault weapon. And the first person to walk through the door was a father. And he said, "This is a gun I found in my son's knapsack."
Damn.
So the point I'm making is that program was put together because of visionaries like you and Blue Williams, where we didn't get taxpayer money. And when I'm Brooklyn DA, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call the private sector and say, our children are being killed in Brownsville, in East New York. Can you contribute some money for these programs? So it doesn't have to only be taxpayer money.
Or even, and if it's not money,
time, services, talent.
Or if it's that, like I said, yo, a cat will turn in a burner for some Summer Jam tickets. I'm telling you. Guns will come off the streets.
Ebro, how about this? You give in your gun and you get a job. Let's take it to another level.
Let's
take it to another level. Forget content tickets.
The thing that Blue did, that's huge. The thing that Blue did that you guys did at CCC that day, that was the part I loved the most.
Yes.
Which was, if you step in here and you're interested and ready to put in the work, we will find you a place to work.
Yes.
And we'll even mentor you into trying to get you into whatever type of business you're interested in, from marketing to recording to whatever.
Ebro, imagine what I can do as Brooklyn DA with respect to that. The power I would have to garner folks to help save these young men and save our communities. Because Blue has a good saying, one gun turned in means we saved at least 2 lives. The lives of the victim and the lives of the shooter, the life of the shooter.
And look, and I tell cats this all the time. We talk about this often. There's plenty of vacancies in the pen.
Of course.
The prison industrial complex is a publicly traded thing. Private companies make money on you. So you out here walking with your pistol, selling your whatever, acting tough. You're really just preparing yourself to go make money for some big corporation that owns a penitentiary somewhere.
But of course, they're not thinking about it like that.
So you think you out here doing something in your mind. But really all you're doing is preparing yourself to be capitalized on as an animal in the penitentiary system.
Right.
So you're really double fucked.
Right.
And you screwing your community.
But wait, let me ask you because a lot of people, in terms of turning in your gun, that feels like a setup for most people.
Right.
Why am I going to bring my illegal weapon to a legal establishment and think that they're not going to videotape me, fingerprint me, have me fill out some form or something? This is going to come back to haunt me. Where's the security in a person who wants to do the right thing but feels like, I'd rather not take the chance. I'd rather throw my gun in the sewer.
There's steps that are put in place when they do these gun buybacks where they have, it's based on anonymity. You come in, no questions are asked. And blocks before you get to the location is understood that if you come in there, that you can't be arrested. So there's things in place to encourage folks. I'm not saying, though, that gun buybacks are a panacea. What I'm saying is this gun violence is so out of control that we have to do everything. And these guns are not made in Brooklyn. Let's keep it real.
They're being trafficked in from Virginia,
other
the
parts down
Carolinas.
south.
They're being trafficked in.
As we sit here right now, there's guns coming up I-95 to New York City that's going to end up in Brooklyn, end up in the hands of these young brothers who are going to have a petty beef, shoot, miss the target, and kill some young kid.
Now, Ken, before we wrap this up, I do want to, I guess, give a thumbs up to the work that's already been done. Because yourself, like with the gun buyback programs and the crime rate in the city, and even as much as we hear about the Chicagos and you know, Oaklands and places where violence is rampant, they say violence in America is at like 100-year low. What about in Brooklyn, and what's the atmosphere like in New York City? How are we doing right now as we sit here today? We hear the horror stories, and there is a lot of them, and we want to make it better. But are we doing a good job right now?
Well, crime is down for the most part, but in Brooklyn, rapes are on the rise. Murders in South Brooklyn are on the rise. Felony assaults are on the rise. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Got it.
And
so there's still pockets.
Definitely.
Specifically in Brooklyn.
Yes.
That need some attention.
Yes. And so as Brooklyn DA, what I'm going to do every day when I get up is to make sure I keep us safe on the streets and in our homes, but also that we're treated with fundamental fairness. That's what we need in the criminal justice system. And so I intend to be a DA for all of Brooklyn, and it doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter where you come from. We're going to have one Brooklyn, one standard of justice, and there's going to be equal justice for all.
All right, there he is, Ken Thompson, going up against, what's the guy's name that's been in?
Charles J. Hines.
Charles J. Hines. And what's your relationship with this guy? I've never heard him speak before. I don't know nothing about him.
I have no relationship with him other than I'm going to defeat him. And other than when we had a debate on New York 1, and when we finished it, he turned and said Ken Thompson is thuggish.
What does that mean?
I like to ask him. What does that mean? I'm wearing a suit and tie. I'm presenting my case to the people of Brooklyn.
If you're not talking soft, as a black man, you got to talk soft. You can't talk with your hands. You got to whisper. Otherwise, you consider thuggish. You know how they do it.
It was offensive what he said. What I'm doing is I'm presenting the case to the people of Brooklyn for change. We have to usher in a new era of fairness for all.
I like it. Ken Thompson
for
Brooklyn District Attorney.
Thank you.
Correct?
Yes, brother.
All right, there it is. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, man.